I am Jim Collison, and live from Omaha, Nebraska, in the Gallup office in Sydney, Australia. This is Gallup's Called to Coach, recorded on March 17th, 2015. Called to Coach is a resource for those who want to help others discover and use their strengths. We have Gallup experts and independent strengths coaches share tactics, insights, and strategies to help coaches maximize the talent of individuals, teams, and organizations around the world. If you have questions during the webcast, we do have a live chat room that's available for you right below the main video window if you're joining us live. And if you're listening to the recorded version or have questions about custom strengths coaching solutions for small, medium, or large organizations, you can contact us. Just send us an email, coaching@gallup.com, or use the contact form that's right there on the page to the right at coaching.gallup.com. And don't forget to visit the Gallup Strengths Center for coaching resources and training needs. That's just Gallup Strengths Center, all one word.com, and that will get you there as well. You can also catch the video on both streaming and now downloadable audio for offline listening. You can take this on the train or in a plane or in the car. Great ways to recapture that time. Just download it to your phone or your mobile device, and everything and all the links are available for that, including the iTunes link to get that done on your iPhone. This show and past shows out at coaching.gallup.com. Clara DeCarteret is our host today. She works as a learning and sales manager with Gallup in the Sydney office, where I wish I was today. Although, Claire, great weather in Omaha, Nebraska today. We had 83. I know that doesn't translate to Celsius for you guys right away, but it was beautiful in Omaha. I'm sure it's beautiful in Sydney. Welcome to another Call to Coach.
Thank you so much. Very happy to be here today. I'm looking outside of my office. There's a bit of cloud coverage and it's starting to transition into autumn, but still lovely warm days in the middle of the day. So, yeah, we'll have to get you down here one day soon, Jim. I'm excited to introduce Murray Guest today. Murray is a Gallup-Certified Strengths Coach. Murray is a business owner and consultant partnering with individuals and organisations. The name of his business is Inspire My Business. And Murray's mission is that he's passionate about inspiring people to live their true life purpose and be as successful as possible. So welcome to you, Murray, and thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Jim, and thank you, Claire. It's a real privilege to join you today. I'm looking forward to our conversation for the next half an hour or so. And from sunny Sydney, I'm over here with Claire and just talking a bit about strengths and I guess my journey and why I'm so passionate about it as well.
Very good. Thank you, Murray. Well, we might have you start off by telling us a bit about your journey and starting with your top 5, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Claire. So my top 5 are relator, futuristic, individualization, communication, and responsibility. And it's a bit funny because when I look at those top 5 and when I saw those play out in my report, I thought they actually form such a great process for what I love to do. And it's to really build relationships with people, and then we look in that future, that possible future that's available to that person, and then step into that space and then draw on their individual strengths. And then how can we communicate that? How can we put that out to the world? And then that responsibility strength is all about being driven to serve, and then how I can support them to do that and serve them. As Claire said, I'm a Gallup Strengths coach and completed my strengths training not so long ago. And what I found was that it really, I guess, validated my natural intuition to focus on people's strengths. I'm a father of 3 wonderful children and have been working for 15 years in roles in manufacturing and learning development, and on top of that another 5 to 6 years, let's say, of also being a practitioner and a consultant. And over all that time, my focus as a leader and as a parent has really been about how can I support the natural strengths and talents of people and helping them develop. And then doing my training not so long ago and becoming certified, I realized, you know what, this makes so much sense, and now I'm getting that validity, I guess, of my intuition around that. And I think something that really sums it up so well for me is Zig Ziglar, who I listened to quite a number of times, and I'm sure many of our listeners have heard of Zig's work. One of his statements, and if I get this wrong, I apologize, but it's really about the best way to succeed is to help others succeed. And I really loved that as a coach. and how can we help others identify their true purpose and really achieve that as linked to their strengths.
Nice. So, Murray, what is really the majority of the work that you're doing now? If you can tell us a bit about the work that you're doing, that'd be great.
Thanks, Claire. So certainly, as you said at the start, my focus or my passion is around partnering with individuals and organisations. So from an individual level, working with some people one-on-one, helping them uncover or really pull back that curtain around their individual strengths, and then helping them dial those up a bit more to achieve their goals in life. A few people lately have wanting to start their own business, re-engage with a different organisation, and some are actually looking at reinventing themselves. They're finding themselves a bit stagnant and going, hang on, I'm actually not getting that satisfaction in what I'm doing, so what's next for me? And really helping them explore that and then put together that plan to go forward around their strengths. So one part is working with individuals, the other part is working with organisations, small to medium to large. But really, if I think about it, it's the common theme is people that are really engaged and think about moving from good to great. How do they believe and support and invest in their people? And Claire and I were talking not so long ago about small businesses, and so many small businesses that are trying to grow and build that capability in their people, and in their teams they have people that are wearing so many different hats, and they find that a challenge. So then how do we wrap around that sort of multi-layered, multi-function role that people in small businesses play around their strengths, so you can retain them as talented people in your business, and at the same time getting the best engagement and motivation out of them from using their strengths. So some of the smaller organisations working with at the moment is a real estate agent, an accounting firm, and actually just talking at the moment to a childcare centre around linking into the teaching with your strengths as well. So that's really exciting.
And so focusing on small businesses, small and growing businesses, you've outlined some of those challenges for those small businesses across different industry sectors. How have you seen strengths really have an impact with that work that you're doing in that particular small business realm?
The strengths, like a lot of tools where we start to understand ourselves better and we understand other people better, the strengths provides that language of people to start to label behaviours or understand behaviours where there has been that conflict, and realise that actually there's something that's more deep-seated, and it's around that natural sort of way of being. And where I've seen the strengths really help is where you've got a small team that are working hard, very passionate in what they want to do, yet sometimes we'll get some sort of unhelpful behaviours start to come up. So what the strengths is able to do is really help unpack that, and then realise that it's actually not about personalities, and it's not about some other conflict, and helping people move on maybe from some of those challenges they've had in the past, and actually really start to think about what each brings to the team, and what each brings to the team from their strengths to then have that mutual success. And what I'm finding is everyone's passionate in they want to achieve, yet there's just that misalignment, and so the strengths are helping to break that down and explore that, and then help people move forward.
Yeah, definitely. And I can imagine that in a small team, any of those issues would be magnified, especially when people are wearing multiple hats, like you said, are some of the challenges for that environment. I know you also do a lot of work with leaders, so I'm interested to explore how that might be different or the same as the challenges that small and growing businesses are facing.
Yeah, great question, Claire. I think you know, people are people, whether it's a small business, a medium, or a very large multinational organisation, and there's some common trends, and it's really about how do we engage our people, how do we keep our people, how do we ensure that they are getting to do what they do their best as often as possible. And I think with leaders, that can sometimes be a bit more challenging because you don't have people in large organisations wearing those multiple hats. That's more rigid in the work that they do. So then I think the aim that I've been working with some leaders around is, well, what opportunities can we create to help that person utilize their strengths as much as possible? And those opportunities might be through project teams or one-off projects, or some different changes or slight tweaking you can do around the role function. And I also think with leaders, I did share a post recently on LinkedIn, I think we were talking about earlier, Claire, around stop fixing people and that focus on weaknesses. And with leaders, I think it's around that conversation about, well, understanding the strengths in your team and actually dialing those up more than, focusing on, Jane or Bob or whoever it might be, and where the gaps are. Which unfortunately the history has been a lot of development plans around, well, there's gaps in this area and that area, so now we need to go and fix those, as opposed to let's focus on the strengths and what they bring. So I can see that's some of the more differences with larger organisations is how they can do that.
Yeah, especially when they've got that added challenge of having more structure. So you've got to be able to move within the refines of that structure as well. And so just thinking a little bit about leaders and the leaders that you're working with, how are you finding that they're receiving the strengths concept? How is that being embedded in their leadership style?
Yeah, it's early stages, I think, with a few clients, Claire, in the sense of moving beyond the understanding our strengths and what that means for us and the team. I think embedding is so important. It's those little things that we do as leaders beyond those initial interventions and conversations as a coach or in a team setting to keep an initiative alive and to actually have that sustainable change in the culture. So I think the challenge is, how do we build it into the processes of the organisation and into our day-to-day practices where strengths is just the way we work. And it's a journey, and certainly I think some people get that pretty quick, and others it's actually much more difficult because of, like you're saying, some of those constraints you can have in the organisation, and also some of those people are harder or not as fast to jump on the bus for an initiative like strengths. I think there's lots of opportunities though to integrate it. I've seen where organisations have people bring their top fives to their meeting, and they explore those as often as possible and refer to that, and really use the language of the strengths to help engage people in discussions and acknowledge people's contributions. I have also seen it used across different office structures in regards to, just on notice boards and areas in the office, just as that gentle sort of conscious reminder. But yeah, it's a journey, and I think it's all those little things we can do which don't cost a lot of money from investment but have such a huge impact for keeping it going in the organisation.
Yeah, and keeping it sticky and keeping it at the forefront, as you say, so that people are reminded of it every day, and it's not just that event. It's kind of becomes the way we do things. I love that quote that you used, the way we get things done around here. Murray, you mentioned that you had recently published an article on LinkedIn, Stop Fixing People, and I know you've had a lot of feedback from that. What are some of the key takeaways from that blog post that you might like to share with the audience today?
Yeah, and I guess part of the aim of that post, Claire, was just to really think about that way that we look to fix the weaknesses and fix people. And I know it sounds a bit blunt, and I guess that was to try and grab some attention, because really I think as leaders, as teachers, as individuals, as partners in relationships and parents, we do look to sometimes fix people and look where the gaps are and improve those. I can think about as a child when you go to school and then you bring your assignment home or your test and say, look, Mum and Dad, I got 80% or I got 90%. Unfortunately, quite often the response is, where's the other 10%? What happened? As opposed to acknowledging the good and what's gone well. So there's that positive side, but also what sports or what subjects and what we direct people down a career path and a study path in life. So the idea was around, we're thinking about how often we do that, and actually, hang on a minute, and let's look at what people really love doing and what they're naturally good at, those strengths, and how do we turn those into talents. And the key takeaways I saw out of that is really, from a leadership point of view and from an organisational point of view, how often we could actually focus more on what people are doing well and build that into the culture of the organisation and into the conversations and into the way teams interact, to really acknowledge those strengths, support those and encourage those, and embrace those differences and the strengths that everyone brings together. And I think there's such strong opportunities to do that in so many ways, from the initial onboarding and induction programs in an organisation, through to the development plans, through to incentive programs you might have. So I can recall an example of working at an organisation where, as part of the annual salary review, you could also get a bonus. And as part of that bonus, you had to do a project throughout the year. Quite often people were given projects which had nothing to do with their natural strengths. Let's say you've got a strength which is around, let's say around a ranger or getting things done, yet you've given a project to go out and present information to different departments as part of, let's say, a communication or a change initiative, which is drawing more around those natural strengths of woo and relator and communicator. Yet what we're doing is setting people up to fail, as opposed to how can we actually incentivize them for work and that discretionary effort and recognize it through tailoring those incentives based on their strengths. I'm sure that will get a much, much bigger result for the individual and for the organization as well. Did that answer your question, Claire? I think I've given a bit of an example of some of the key things around, the takeaways from that article.
Yeah, definitely. No, you did answer my question, and I think you raised a really excellent point around it should be part of the entire journey, right from onboarding, because the way I see it, sometimes these things happen in isolation, but to really drive that strengths-based culture and really get that return on investment, embedding it into those systems and processes and making sure it's part of that employee life cycle is really important. That's where you're going to get the biggest impact. So
I think a good point.
Yeah.
I was going to add to that, Claire. I mean, you mentioned the employee life cycle, and that's a really good point. I mean, I touched on inductions and onboarding and development plans, and you could even talk about the way we develop and attract graduates. I guess the other part is, how do we retain that top talent in an organisation when we've actually brought them through that journey and they're part of the organisation, yet they might start to feel a little bit disengaged. They're not actually using their strengths as often as possible, so they might be starting to look elsewhere. So how do we create a culture where they can talk about that, and if we know their strengths, we can provide those opportunities to retain them? And then at the other end of the life cycle, we've got employees that are heading towards retirement. They're looking to, maybe transition out of the workforce, and quite often what happens is we have this huge volume of knowledge that walks out the door. Because as much as we try and capture everything in an organisation, we can't capture all that knowledge. So how do we implement some processes which identify those strengths in individuals and then provide them the opportunity to use those strengths and be engaged as they transition out of the workforce, and we're still capturing and managing all that knowledge for the success of the organisation, and treating those employees, I guess, with that respect and acknowledgement as they're heading out to retire and a different stage in their life. Yeah,
definitely, and I think you've touched on those three kind of really pivotal parts in the employee life cycle, the onboarding part, so starting out, the life cycle is in the whole stretch of the employment, how do you keep engaged, and then that transitioning out of the workforce as well. Really important considerations and lots of opportunity to do more work with strengths through those journeys.
Yeah.
Murray, what are some ways that you've really seen strengths have an impact, either through the work that you're doing or at home with your family and with your focus on strengths with your own children?
Most recently, I was coaching an individual who currently is working full-time, has a senior role in an organisation, but his really passion lies in another field outside of that. And he's so passionate about it, and he's at that transition phase of wanting to really convert that passion into his I guess his career, and to make a real healthy living and wealth out of it. And his passion is yoga, and he's a fantastic yoga teacher, and he's invested so much time and energy in his study. He's got a strong learner in his top strengths, and he's really invested a lot of time and energy into that. Yet when we're talking about the next step that he's ready to take and to move forward and to really embrace that and to have that full, satisfaction in what he's doing, when we explored that and we talked about it, he realized that he was actually pushing aside some of his strengths because he was starting to play a bit small, because he was starting to feel a bit unsure, a little bit inconfident. And then when we unpacked that and then reflected back on where he's used those strengths before for his own success in his work life, and I said, so what would it look like if we dialed up those strengths where you've had success before to make this next step and to make this opportunity that he's looking at a reality? And his whole body changed, his energy changed, he sat up, you could see, the chest was pumped out, he was excited. And I've caught up with him since, and that opportunity, which he was going to let slide because of that not embracing and really owning and claiming his strengths, was going to pass. And now, because we had that coaching session, this opportunity has come to fruition, and he is just now so engaged, and that vitality he's now got for that passion while he's still in this other role. That passion and that excitement has transferred back into there as well. So that's a real recent example where I could see that the framework of the strengths has really helped someone, live their purpose and really chase their dreams, let's say. You also asked about from a parenting point of view. As I said at the start, I'm a very proud father of 3 wonderful children at all different stages of their life. And from a strengths point of view, I've over the years as being a parent, I've really tried to do that as much as possible. And like I said at the start, thinking about the strengths framework and how that's given me the research and that language for how I talk to my children and how I approach something. Yes, they're wonderful children, and yes, sometimes they maybe push the boundaries a little bit as well. And so I guess the idea is when they do that, what's the best way to have the conversation with them? What's the best way to help them learn? And what's the best way to help them be the best children, the best individuals, the best people they can ever be? And focusing on their individual strengths. I think sometimes about, sports dads and stage mums, we sometimes call them, about, it can be a little bit, well, it feels like we're getting our kids to do what we want to do as children when we were younger. And certainly what I'm looking forward to is, and what I try to do as much as possible, is my kids get the opportunity to do what they really want to do, which fits in with their natural strengths, and embracing that and supporting that, coaching them to be the best that they can in that field, which is their natural strength. And I really enjoy doing that with them and seeing them really just flourish, to be honest.
Yeah, it must be exciting to see their energy around that, because I think a lot of parents don't take that same approach rightly, or it's not that they're doing the wrong thing. It's just that's the way we do it. We focus on the gaps and the weaknesses and work on trying to improve that. So very exciting for your children and liberating that they are able to explore those areas that are natural to them.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, Claire, in regards to an organisation and how the strengths coaching and understanding your strengths and completing the strengths finder gives you that language and that framework.
Yeah.
And it also gives that framework around the house. So the kids have done the Discover Your Strengths online assessment, and I've debriefed that with them, so they understand that and the strengths journey. And my wife and I, of course, have both done it as well. And so when we talk, we've got that common language that really helps each other and helps coach each other, which is great. And probably a great example is my daughter is in year 11 at the moment, which is, for our US listeners, it's the second last year of high school, 17, and when she started year 11, she's selected advanced English and then extension English on top of that, and also advanced maths. And first couple of weeks of advanced maths, she's come home and said, I really don't like this. I don't want to do this. And I said to her, well, don't do advanced maths. I can see you don't feel it. You really don't want to do it. It's not where you want to be in the future. And so she dropped to what's called general maths, and she's continued with extension English. And she's topped the year in a couple of assessments. She's second in another area of for that extension English, and really you can see that that's just a natural talent for her for creative writing and for that area of study. So again, I could have said, no, you've got to focus on maths, but really that's not her natural strength, and there's no point trying to force that down her throat, I guess. Yeah.
So it sounds like a strengths-based family.
We try to be as much as possible.
Murray, let me jump in on that one and just say, so my daughter is just a year behind yours, and we're facing a similar situation where she's in show choir, and she's in, so she's singing, and she does really well in math, but like your daughter, she doesn't appreciate it as much. And yet her English skills in what she's doing with her writing and editing are soaring. And we just had this conversation. It's just almost like I'm looking at me having this conversation. And she came to us and said, I don't feel like that's the best use of my time doing those, because I'm not good at it. It was just so funny to hear this language. I'm not good at it, and I have to spend more time doing it because I'm not good at it, when I could be focusing it on things like journalism and the writing that she so desperately wants to do. And it was a proud father moment when I didn't even have to coach her. She coached herself when she understood. She's had the benefit of living with strengths the longest in our family over the last 8 or 9 years, and so she kind of coached herself into that. Do you find your children now, as they are embracing this, do you find those moments then when they kind of come to those realizations on their own? And obviously with your daughter, she's seeing some of that as well. Any other examples where the kids are responding that way?
Yeah, I'm definitely seeing that, Jim, and it's wonderful to hear another parent that's actually has that approach, and those moments where our own children have that self-awareness, and as you said, I have that confidence to come and say, hang on, this doesn't feel right. I feel like I'm actually working much harder for the same result because there's a misalignment with me. It's such a proud moment as a parent. My younger children, so I have a 12-year-old boy, very similar, was playing soccer. Soccer was a thing that nearly every boy in Australia plays before they head into other sports. And really, he's the sort of kid that was kicking the grass as the ball bounced off his legs. Like, he was out there talking to his friends about Lego or whatever else. Like, you could see it wasn't connecting with him at all. I could have persevered with that, but he's actually found gymnastics is his thing, and he absolutely loves it, and he dedicates himself to it and works really hard at it. And he's very consciously said, I don't feel that. I don't want to do that yet. I've found this other sport, which I'm far from any gymnast, Jim. I've never been, it's not my sort of field, but something which he's gravitated to and loves, and he's found a natural sort of connection with. So, yeah, and my wife and I very much supported that.
Yeah, and I think that takes a special parent to give that up and say, to let the kids, right, from a parenting technique, to let the kids make some of those decisions. Now you have to guide them in some of those things, but to really kind of start to say, based on that, and that's not a one and done, take strengths, explore, and then all of a sudden you know them, right? I mean, it took, I'm sure there's a lot of conversations that went on with you and the kids about those. The debrief that you mentioned wasn't a 15-minute exercise, right? This is something you guys have been working on over time.
Yeah, totally. And as a parent, I mean, I'm sure lots of us have heard the statement about the teenage years and how bad the teenage years are. And I'm happy to share, and I'm very proud to say, I didn't have these terrible teenage years with my daughter. And I say the reason why is the conversations that started when she was 5, when she was 6 years old, not when she was 13 and we went, oh, she's a teenager, what are we going to do now? It's about those constant conversations we have as parents and as friends and as individuals in trying to support and coach each other as much as possible. And I think it's no different from within an organization or a team or in a family unit or as a group of friends. How do we hold people up? How do we help support and coach each other to be the best they are and not pull people down? And I think what we talk about from a strengths point of view in organisations is so much has so much relevance also to within the family unit as well. And I think that it doesn't happen overnight, like you're saying, Jim. It's those constant conversations which shape the culture.
Yeah, I'm taking lots of notes for my 1-year-old and my 3-year-old. I think if I start now, and it's funny actually because you can already see such big differences between my 1-year-old and my 3-year-old. So starting to see even some of those clues to what their talents might be coming through in their behaviours for sure, for sure.
And that's a real, I mean, it's funny how, Claire, just very quickly on that, you hear parents say, oh, I've had a child and now I've had another child, and they don't behave the same. Then they're different. They're doing this differently, or this one sleeps differently, that one sleeps differently. But guess what? They're both individuals. Yeah, they both have their uniqueness, and it's about how do we embrace that uniqueness and support that and help that grow.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I always say they haven't read the book. They haven't read the parenting book that we've read, and we're expecting them to fall into that routine. Murray, you recently attended Gallup's Accelerated Strengths Coach program in February out of our Sydney office. I'd love you just to share a little bit about your experience on the program and what some of the real aha moments were for you, some of the key takeaways.
Yeah, I must say, Claire, the first thing that comes to mind is the 16 kilograms of resources that Gallup provided. And I must say, I've accredited in a couple of other tools, and to get that level of resource and that level of support beyond the program is absolutely fantastic. I proudly have shared those resources with other people to show them how much supporting information to help people on their strengths coach journey is available to them when they do the program. The program itself was wonderful for a number of reasons. One, we had two wonderful facilitators, Claire being one and Robin from Gallup was another one. Both as facilitators or trainers over the program created a space where people very much opened up, shared, and learnt about becoming a strengths coach. We had a group of around, I think, 15 people. And those 15 people really shared their own personal journey, shared their strengths, and got the opportunity to coach each other. And really, there wasn't any role plays. We did real plays. Some real insights for me over the week certainly was the interplay between strengths and how, looking at how they play out for people, and then understanding that to the next level was good to understand about then how you could use that in the conversations with people to help them really claim their strengths. Certainly what we did over the course of that accelerated coaching program was peel back the onion. It's a bit like walking in on the first day and saying, yeah, I know my top 5, I might know my top 34, I know how they play out, and then by the end of day 1 go, uh-oh, maybe we've just peeled back a little bit. And then day 2, oh, we've peeled back a lot more. And then day 3, oh, we've covered it. Yeah, that's right. No, we're going even deeper. And there was this real understanding of, well, how they actually appear in our lives in so many different ways, and how we can embrace them, and that analogy of they're like a gas burner. They're not a light switch that we turn on and off. They're like a gas burner that we can dial up or dial down to help us achieve what we'd like to achieve in life and what our goals are. And thinking about how we can actually help people to name that their strengths and claim it and really aim it towards the goals that they've got. The other probably key lesson that I got out of it was that process of the different ways of helping people understand their strengths by visualizing it, taking it through things like the visual cards, aligning it to people's values, and really helping it to, I guess, attract to the different types of learners. So it wasn't just written down, but we explored some different ways to really do that, and people then get really engaged to their strengths. So yeah, it was a great week.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. And so what are some of your favourite, because I know you do a lot of work with organisations and individuals across Sydney, Central Coast, Newcastle area. What are some of your favourite activities, I suppose, where you really feel like you get a lot of impact in the work that you do?
Yes, certainly. For a team, I can't recommend enough doing the team strengths map and going through that. So once individuals understand their strengths, and then exploring, well, what does that mean for the team, and doing that map. And I think the best way to do that is get people out of their seats and explore that. I think the cards. So how do we visually represent and connect with our strengths? And you could do a card sort or a bingo game or something like that to help people look at which visualization or which image best connects with them and their strengths, and which ones that they are just not going to give up because that represents them so much, and then how does that all map together for the team? The other part probably is really starting to say, well, what action are we going to take? Because it's nice to talk about all these strengths and nice to say understand it all, but what does it mean going ahead? What does it mean for next? What's the action we're going to take? So then what's the goal? And then how can we map out the strengths we're going to use to achieve that goal? And part of that process, beyond the bit around claiming it, is really about, well, how have they played up before in your life, and how can we replicate that and dial that up to the appropriate level to achieve that goal? And then, of course, mapping that out, and then my responsibility kicks in around, well, how can I help hold you accountable to achieve that? Yeah. And for the other part is, for organisations, I try to set up accountability partners. So I can't be the accountability partner for everybody in a large team or organisation. So how can we set that up within the organisation so that people are holding each other accountable going forward?
Great. Yeah, definitely. I love that piece on accountability. You know, I think it's so important to give it some momentum and make it sticky, but also to hold people accountable to do what they said they're going to do, because, you know, having worked with strengths, with my own strengths and my team's strengths for about 8 years now, I know that you need to consciously work on it every week and every day. So, yeah, love those tips. Thank you, Murray. Murray,
I was just going to say, Claire, I think the important thing is that as leaders and as managers, I think that we quite often would look to our team and we look to try and divide up the work or allocate the work to get the most from the team and try and have them as engaged as possible. And I think by uncovering the strengths of the individuals and understanding that, and each person in the team understands that, actually makes that whole process much easier, because you actually now have that awareness, and it gives you that framework to actually now say, well, all right, so how do we structure the work that we need to do as a team in a way that everyone loves what they're doing, they're engaged to it, they're actually going to be, you know, happier, and actually, and then of course the flowing from that is everyone gets along better as well.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely. It happens just more organically that way as well, doesn't it?
Yeah.
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 Murray, thank you so much for talking to us today. I love some of your insights that you've shared around inspiring people and inspiring organisations. I also love your layer about how you parent and inspire your children through taking a strengths-based approach with them. And I think you're right, it's so applicable to every relationship and every aspect in our life, and it can be so inspiring to live your strengths, absolutely. So I know your business name is Inspire My Business. Is there anything else you wanted to say about that, or direct people to a website at all?
Well, thanks, Claire, for that opportunity. The website is www.inspiremybusiness.com, and our aim is, as you've outlined so beautifully, is to help people live that inspired life within the framework of their strengths and what's their purpose. And that might be individuals, but also within organisations, small to large. I'm also very much about partnering with organisations, and the partnering is all about, well, what's the strengths, and so what's my strengths that I can bring in that partnership, and what strengths does that individual bring as well. And so in the business, we've got a number of partnerships that are around that framework, and the strengths help identify that and work. So I think that if anyone's listening at the moment, that the strengths provide a great opportunity in how you build relationships with your suppliers and with your clients, because it actually then helps you understand how do we approach and work together as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks for that. And Jim, I know you've got a question you'd like to ask Murray too.
I do, and actually I'm going to change it up a little bit because you answered the one I typically talk about. But Murray, for coaches, when we think about social media, how important is that to you, and how do you maximize it? You talked about you posted on LinkedIn. Are you finding any, when we think about social media and technology, anything really helpful in the world of coaches? And if somebody's not doing something, what you might encourage them to, how to use social media in their coaching practice?
Thanks, Jim. That's a great question. I guess the way I like to think about this is, where do your clients hang out? Where do your ideal clients hang out? So if you're a coach that wants to coach small businesses or entrepreneurs, or in Australia we call them sole traders, and they live on Facebook, so you should be communicating and producing information and sharing information on Facebook. If your potential client, your ideal client, is a business, and that business lives on LinkedIn, like most medium to large organizations do, how are you sharing information on LinkedIn? How are you sharing posts, commenting on groups, and having that presence as a thought leader, as someone of knowledge, and providing value to people on LinkedIn? I think Twitter is a common platform across both, and Google Plus is certainly growing, but certainly I think it's thinking about where your clients hang out and using those to connect with your clients.
And all that social media stuff, super easy, right? You just go out there and no, it's, that's one of the things. It's a question I get all the time. What do I do in media? And then once I'm there, I hear it all the time. I don't understand Twitter, right? I hear that from the coaches. I don't know what we're going out there, and it is complex. I think it takes a little time and investment. You just didn't write and drop it on LinkedIn. It probably requires a little bit of time and investment to gather folks around you to kind of cultivate that audience, and then the published work really helps, right? I mean, is that kind of how it works for you?
Yeah, it does, and it's about building those networks and connecting with the right people. And when I say the right people, it's the ones that are going to be clients or potential clients, but also from a business partnership point of view. I guess one tip I'd like to share, Jim, is about repurposing information. If you've got a blog and you've been sharing information on that blog, whether that's audio, video, or written, you don't need to rewrite all that when you share it on Facebook or LinkedIn or send a link out on Twitter. So you can repurpose that information and maybe tweak it for the potential clients that are going to read that on each platform. But seriously, you don't need to start again from scratch. How do you repurpose that to make life easy for yourself?
No, that's good advice. We were just talking about that in the pre-show a little bit with you, and that even here at Gallup, we try to take, if we think like our Theme Thursday broadcast, we do the whole 45-minute podcast, but we pull out a 10-minute segment that we call the Theme Overture, right? And we make that available as just a video. And so you might have some content where you can pull pieces out and share that in the particular networks that you might have, and repurpose it and get. My goal in social media is 3 uses of everything I do, right? And so it's just one of those ways of use it again, use it a third time. In fact, I had somebody on Twitter share with me the other day, said, "You posted this 4 times. Did you mean to do that?" And yes, I had. Maybe 4 was too many in that case, but certainly I like to reuse it as well. Well, Murray, thanks for taking the time. It's great to get to know you, and you had some great suggestions. I just posted out on Facebook a minute ago. If you missed this one, lots of practical advice from you, and so we appreciate you taking the time to come out and be a part of Call the Coach this evening. And I'll remind everyone to take full advantage. If this is the first time you've watched something like this, take full advantage of all the resources, including, if you're wondering what StrengthsFinder is, you can head out to the Gallup Strengths Center, just Gallup-Strengthscenter.com. Maybe you stumbled across this and you're like, how do I get this StrengthsFinder goodness? Well, Gallup-Strengthscenter.com is a great place to start, and send us your questions. If you want to email us, coaching@gallup.com. Murray, are you okay put an email address out there if someone wanted to contact you? Is there the best way to do that?
Yeah, sure, Jim. Email address is murray@inspiremybusiness.com. And Perfect. Thanks again for the opportunity to have the chat today. Really enjoyed it. Thank you.
You bet, and I'll remind you as well, you can catch the recorded audio and video of this program. So if you want to watch it again, just go back and do it. You can share it with friends and relatives, neighbors, anybody you want on social. We'd love for you to do that as well. All the links are available to do that out of the Coaches blog. Just go to coaching.gallup.com. You don't have to be a coach to be on the Coaches blog. We have lots of great information on the blog as well as meetups. We're doing meetups around the world, and so we have some 20 meetups going on. StrengthsFinder meetups. Again, you don't have to be a coach to do a meetup. But we have these meetups going on around the world. They're all posted on our coaching blog. If you just go to the meetups tab, they are there, and you can see where they're at. We need to get one going in Australia, by the way. And we want to remind you that we do have a StrengthsFinder app for both Android and iOS. Just search StrengthsFinder in either one of those stores. Lots of people have trouble remembering their top 5. They'll go, let's remember 4. Or they always go, oh, I can't remember. Well, get the app, download it, log in with the account that you took StrengthsFinder with. You'll get access to it, and then take a screenshot, right? Just screen capture on the iPhone. That's just that button on the bottom and the button on the top. Then make that your lock screen. And then the average person checks their phone 63 times a day now. You'll have that memorized in 3 days. I guarantee it. You'll never forget your top 5. It's a great way to have it with you at all times. Claire, we do have some courses. I know I was looking through the course list. Do we have anything coming up in Australia? I know we got tons of stuff going on around the world.
Yeah, we do, right across the region, Asia Pacific, but our next course in Australia is on the week of the 1st of June, so 1 to 5 June, and it's up online for anyone that wants to register for the course or find out more information. That's on the Gallup-Certified Centre, so you can get those dates there.
And just so you think, oh, go ahead. Sorry, no, go ahead.
Well, we have one accelerated strengths coach program a quarter, so there's lots of opportunity to get certified in Australia and New Zealand.
Always an opportunity. Because we're global on this, I'll just read off a few cities, and let's just see if there's one near you, right? So Singapore, Atlanta, Santa Clara, Washington, Beijing, Delhi, Mexico City, London, Chicago, Berlin. I think we're international, and I think we might be pretty close, especially here in the United States. I didn't even have to say Omaha in that, or Irvine, or Chicago. We've got all these courses available for you. Check, like Claire said, check the Strengths Center, GallupStrengthsCenter.com for those. We want to thank everyone for joining us today, and of course, if you enjoyed it, please share it. We'll look forward to another Call to Coach. Thanks, everybody.